Hello everyone, this is Camera Flips, the best place to buy and sell used camera gear. This is episode number 7 of A Photographer's Life, where we talk to the people that made the pictures we love. My guest for today is Joanna Berg, an incredibly gifted photographer based in Thailand. Joanna's picture challenged the stereotypical view of identity and gender. In her work, she wants her subjects to feel empowered and in control rather than focusing on the struggle and abuses that unfortunately members of the LGBTQ community face every single day. She is keenly aware of these issues, having experienced firsthand the violent consequences of hate speech in her native Poland, but she aims at something different with her heart. In unveiling her subjects for the camera, she sends a powerful message to anyone who doesn't feel at home in their country, their family, or their own body. You are not alone, and you're beautiful, strong, and free. Let's jump right into our conversation. Okay, we are live. Episode number 7 of Photographer's Life. Today I have Joanna Berg. I was really looking forward, I guess, for more than a week since I was sure that she was on the show. Her work is incredibly powerful, and I think it's really worth talking about. There's so many things to cover. It's you will viewers advise will see some very intimate shots, moving in many instances. We would like today also to challenge some of the stereotypes around gender identity. There's so much to talk about, and there are also some recent events that sort of can influence in very different ways her work and the global political landscape. So all of this for a photographer's interview. So a lot to talk about. Joanna, I really want to sort of pass the ball to you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us how you get into photography, and then we can start talking about your awesome work.
First of all, again, nice to meet you, and I'm super excited about this opportunity to talk about my projects. And so, as you said, they are in general focused on gender, queer topics, and this is what I've been doing since a few years, probably. But of course, when you ask me when I started to be interested in photography, it was probably when I was a teenager. The typical story about a teenager who joined a photography workshop and took pictures of plants, flowers, and landscapes, and was so excited about this analog photography when you have to develop all the materials in a dark room, and it's a kind of magic, as even probably now for teenagers who only know digital photography, and even then it was like 20 years ago probably. So even then it was quite excited to see how your work start to appear. So it's something like that. And yeah, so
when I'm curious, obviously this was your first, and it probably was love at first sight, the ability to capture forever, maybe an instant, but is there anything that sort of moved you from the classic still nature photography or a more general topic, and to really focus your attention onto your current topic of interest? Was it an event, something that happened, or just a gradual development into that?
I was 16 when with all the group of other teenagers who knew each other from this photography workshop. It was actually in a teenager palace, so youth palace, just a cheap workshop for kids. And our tutor, who was a sports photographer, which is quite funny, because he knew that it was an exhibition of non-coding works. The background is that I used to live in Bydgoszcz. It's a maybe it's not a small city, but also it's not a big city. So it's like somewhere between typical city, Polish city, 300 kilometers from Warsaw, which is capital. And we knew about non-Goldin exhibition, and we went there together, which was quite crazy because that exhibition was quite controversial. I think that our parents has to sign agreement that we could see it.
Wow.
Probably my mom. Yes. So I even remember that I record some radio interview because there were some protests of showing someone's work which were focused on a gay community from 80s or 90s. I'm not sure yet now. So anyway, we went there, and so I was I was learning. I was learning photography. I was learning all these traditional techniques. Um, and I remember the moment when I entered the Center of Modern Art, and when I saw the first picture and all the works of Nan Golding, which were shown there was about topics related to body, sexual identity. There were a lot of violence on those pictures, and it was something so shocking that because the way how she worked was that she wasn't focused on technical issues. She used to use a automatic camera, the simplest,
Okay.
it was the simplest tool to just shoot the pictures, and the way how she did it, it was so strong and powerful, and you also could see that she wasn't someone who was just an observer who was just someone from outside who wanted to show something, but it was so visible that she was in the center of the stories which she told. And the most beautiful picture which I saw, and probably it's the picture which I still have behind my eyes, was a picture of a gay couple, and one of the men on this picture were dying because of AIDS, and I remember that those pictures were in blue colors because everything happened in a hospital, and I remember just simple shots of two people holding their hands, and if you compare it to other non-Goldin's picture where there are a lot of sex, violence, and it's a very tough topic. Those were quite intimate and very delicate, but it was something something just heartbreaking when you could see it, and it was it was the first time when I saw something completely different to works which I saw before. That's why I said at the beginning that it was quite funny that our photographer tutor he's a sports photographer, but he also wanted to see it, and he was quite brave enough to take a teenager to this exhibition. But probably it was the first moment when I saw a photography which wasn't a kind of WordPress or Grand Press photography. It was somehow documentary, but also it was extremely intimate, and it was something which completely wrote my my mind. So yeah, but even later, I didn't take that kind of picture. I was still teenager who was interested in art, culture, everything. So when I finished high school, I just moved to Warsaw because I wanna live in a bigger city, which is quite easy to understand. And I started cultural studies, and I even didn't take a picture for quite a long time before I figured out what I really want to do. So it was quite a long path, and actually after I finished cultural studies, it took me a few years to decide to start working in a commercial studio because I just want to learn all these technical issues. I wanna see how it works when you see commercial pictures which are so perfect. And I just want to learn how to use all the equipment, tools, and so I started to work there, cleaned the floor for 2 years, and they let me to learn. And then I worked there as an assistant. At that time, I decided that it was a moment when I wanted to start studying photography at art university, and this is actually when all that story with cool projects begins. So
I think that's very interesting, and obviously, I think it's fundamental for any artist to really learn the craft, the technical craft, and then to say, okay, in this case, like the type of pictures that you sort of quoted before, I will sort of disregard some technical aspects because I'm more focused on the story, right? But most photographers that do that are extremely solid. They know how to take great pictures, but they understand that sometimes the story, it's far more important, and so become and they don't want to even remove some of the authenticity of sort of taking that shot in the moment. And I think it's funny how certain events you have this, your tutor, your teacher, like a sports photographer, potentially even not expect. So let's see this very controversial exhibition, but how some of these small things, potentially small, can affect us in a very profound and deep way. And I think this is an opportunity to sort of show, a picture and to see, what we were saying before, how now your focus is again to challenge some of our assumptions, to shed some lights on things that sometimes we take for granted or even we don't fully comprehend. Because I know that experience in that specific studio, as I said, really helped and sort of led to this picture. So let me put the picture on the screen and sharing my screen. Okay, tell us all about this picture. There's a lot to talk about, probably a lot more that it's available on the screen, and it will be great if you can guide us through what happened and what led to this moment.
So it was this picture was taken in 2015, and it was actually the time when I used to work in one of the commercial photo studio, and I was cleaning floor and taking care about lighting and equipment. And the best part of that work was that they let me to use all the equipment and studio in a free time when there were no commercial shooting. So of course I used this opportunity as much as possible, and I just used to ask my friends if they can, if they have a free time and if they could join me at the studio, so I could just practice. And it was also the time when I learned how to use medium format, analog medium format. Then I moved to large format because I feel that all the technical issues, if you learn them, they let you be more free. I mean that I wanted to catch this level when you don't have to be afraid that something doesn't work or you don't know how to use it. I just want to feel as free as possible with using every technical tools which I know. So and I remember that it was the hottest day of summer, and I seriously, and it's quite funny because I asked Victor if he could meet with me, and we knew each other from our studies, because I studied cultural studies, Victor studied Polish studies and sociology, I think, and so we knew each other. We also were a volunteer in campaign against homophobia when at the beginning of our studies, but we it was just some time between being a volunteer and this or being a student, and so it was a time distance between when we used to meet more often, and then we didn't have enough time, so we just jumped to each other during pride parades or something, so, and didn't have the time to talk. So I invited Victor just to ask him if I could make some portraits. Portraits, I just wanna practice. And I also asked him to bring clothes like t-shirts, black, gray, and white, because I wanna check how the lighting works in a black and white photography. And that's why it was quite funny, because the hottest day of summer, and he came to the studio with a huge bag full of full of clothes, and we just spent. It was probably Saturday or Sunday, so we spent 12 or 14 hours talking. And also Victor was the first trans guy who I met, and we just started talking about all the body issues. And because I met when the first time when I met him, it was probably a year or two after he started medical transition. So I knew him as a trans guy, and we spent all that hours talking about our experience connected to a body, and it was probably the most honest talking in my life. And after that, when we started to take pictures, I did some portraits, and then Victor, and I asked Victor to if he could just move a t-shirt, so because I didn't want to see a fabric like that close to a face, because it usually looks bad on pictures. And he said that maybe I can just take it off. So it was just I mean it's even difficult to explain how it happened, but at the end, in the evening, we were together in the studio. I turned off the light in the studio, so it was almost dark, and and Victor wanted to have picture when he was fully naked, and it was something extremely beautiful, because he also told me that I was the first person who saw him naked, but was I was the first someone who wasn't in a relationship with him, and saw his body, and it was something so important, I think. And later he told me that for him it was a moment when he felt so empowered about his appearance, his body, because if you can imagine it, I just turn off the light, prepare the lightning, like photo lightning, the flashes, and just start shooting, and let him. And I told him that he could do whatever he wanted, and it's quite. I'm not sure if I'm able to explain it, but I was so honored that someone trusted me so much. And of course, I promised Victor that I won't let anyone to see this picture unless he decides that he wants them to be published. So I also know that like probably every human has some issues with body. We are not self-confident. We are
especially
Mhm.
now in a society that it's it's all about what you put on Instagram. You need to appear
Mhm.
perfect, right? It's not even enough to be okay. I think that
Mhm.
there is something to be said about it. But continue. Yes.
Yeah, and the text which is on this picture, it's Victor's text. He wrote it on his blog, and probably on a Facebook, and I find it like absolutely powerful and beautiful. This when he wrote that his body can exist in this world, that his body can do wonders, and when he wrote that this body grows a facial hair, menstruates, etc. That the way how he combined all these like non-binary levels and uh, and turn something what may make people feel ashamed into something so powerful and beautiful and strong. It was something what impressed me most, and this is what what I was thinking after or even during this shooting, that having this possibility to meet someone with that kind of story it's just kind of a gift, because I feel that his experience or experience of other trans people, it's something which does not happen often, but I feel that their experience can tell so much about our general ideas about body, how we treat body, how we think about body and appearance. So yeah, so those were the things which I had in my head at that time. So
So let me just stop sharing for a second and go back to us. Some things that you said, I think it's worth sort of reflecting on. The idea of creating trust, feeling safe in a very intimate situation, and then transforming an experience like this into something that's empowering for the subject and for everyone. That obviously, how difficult. So that was how many years ago?
5,
5 years
almost
ago.
5. Yeah.
And when did you? Because I'm about to ask a question related to. And when did you see that exhibition that potentially changed the course of your career? How many years ago?
So it was in 2002 or 3. So it was
Wow.
10 years between that non-golden exhibition and the
so
moment.
all of this took place in Poland, right?
Yeah.
And how? One would expect that things sort of over time improve. Poland's just been a recent election. How difficult it still is, and I don't want to sort of put, maybe the answer is different, but from an external perspective, I would like to have an internal perspective instead. How difficult it still is to create those sort of safe spaces and the ability to develop tolerance and the fact that people do not, especially people that that challenge some of the traditional binary identity to be able to, again, not only get naked but to be able to feel absolutely safe. It is still a problem now, sort of 20 years after you saw that exhibition and you had to sign a paper to get in.
So I can answer in like different levels, because the first level is the way how I work. That's why I decided to work in a studio, because I want to make people to feel as comfortable as possible, and I also, this is something what I would never expect, that because when I was thinking about studio work, it was also connected to a commercial, but I thought that it's not a real situation, that it's fake somehow. But now I know that when that situation, that I'm with someone else alone in a studio or any place which I use as a studio, and I know that there is no one inside, only me. I usually work with one person, sometimes with a couples, but in general we are alone, and I feel that it creates this feeling that people feel comfortable. And I always, because I used to work with large format camera, because the quality and analog techniques, it is quite awesome. But I turned to work on with digital camera, and every time I connect camera to my computer, so people can actually see how the pictures look like, and I always tell them that we can erase everything. So it's always up to up to them. So and I do not lie when I tell people that I would delete everything if they want. And some of them also, there are some people who wanted to have that kind of pictures, but they didn't want them to be published, and I still have them on a discs because they let me to have them, because maybe they will decide in 5, 10, 15 years, I don't know, but it's kind of trust which still impress me, and I feel totally honored every time. So this is the first level of the way how I can answer your question. The second level is that when we met with Victor the first time, it was actually the moment when the Transfuzja, it's the first Polish a non-governmental organization, foundation, which is focused on trans people rights. So it was a moment when they tried to change the law, and it was in a parliament, of course. It didn't work, but they tried to change a law because now trans people in Poland have to sue their parents to the court when they want to change their ID. I just mean when they want to change their name and surnames or nicknames, and it's so humiliating because we are not talking about teenagers, we are talking about adult people. So if you can imagine someone who is 20, 30, or even 50 and has to sue his or her parents to the court, usually the parents who are when you are 30 or 40 and your parents are almost 80, it's unbelievable that you are an adult person and you cannot go to a court by yourself. So this is what Transfuzja tried to change in 2015, and it didn't work. And when we met with Victor, it was exactly the moment when, because Victor was one of the people who were working on this, who tried to change this law, and it was the moment when I don't know if he had hope that it was possible to change it, or just he waited for the results. So, but now, especially, so it's the second level of answering your question, that we met in quite extraordinary moment for trans community in Poland. But now, especially after presidential election, the situation changed, and it changed terribly. So last weeks, when the campaign this presidential campaign was in the mass media, like Polish politicians start to use LGBT community as enemies. They start this hate speech campaign, and they called LGBTQ people an ideology that LGBT people aren't people, they are just ideology, and ideology which might destroy Polish traditional families. And there were so many worse things which I don't want to, which I don't want to repeat. You can read it in any news. But the worst part was that they started this like hate speech campaign, and also, everything what happens in mass media and in political life affects the society. And I remember the day when Poland joined European Union in 2004, and it was something huge. And I remember that the society climate was like, people were so proud that they started to be a part of European Union. They were so proud they started to be considered as a modern, still developing, but country which has a future. And after this presidential election, I'm not sure if there is any future for queer people in Poland. Seriously, so many of my friends seriously consider moving abroad, and this is terrible. And because even me, I now I happily get stuck in Thailand, but I don't want to go come back to Poland seriously because I feel I'm afraid of my friends because also 2 years ago because since years we have had this Pride Parade in Warsaw, which started to be quite huge event, and I think that last year it was around 50,000 people who joined it. Uh, but also Polish NGOs like LGBTQ NGOs started to organize pride marches in smaller cities, and it was one terrible pride in Białystok. It's a city on eastern of Poland, and this pride turned into riot. Seriously, like the people who went there met counter protesters who were throwing stones, rockets, and it looked terrible. It was terrible, and it also was connected with this political climate that politicians start to use this hate speech to LGBTQ people. And after that pride, I also noticed that even in Warsaw, when you where you can live quite comfortable and openly when you are a gay person, I started to notice that something changed. Like my best friend, who's a transgender girl, she was attacked 5 times during a month after this Białystok Pride. Once we were attacked together on the streets, and it was the moment when I also saw, because we were attacked just by 2 guys who noticed her and started to ask this terrible question like, are you a girl or a boy? Or you can imagine what was later. So when just I just stand in front of them because it was automatic reaction. I just wanted to protect Emily, and I wasn't thinking. It was just automatic reaction. But I saw I saw these 2 guys that they were talking exactly in the way how politicians talk in the mass media. They would never figure it out by themselves. This is what they hear in a television, internet, any other mass media, and it's easy to give people enemies who can. It's easy to find someone to be blamed, to hate and to be
to
blamed
channel
for
your internal frustration towards someone telling that they are the problem, not that you.
So and it's quite terrible when and especially when you think about your country and you remember how this country has been changing for years, and it started to be a quite comfortable place to live, and now it stopped, and people don't want probably to wait next 5 or 10 years before it gets better, because all that hate speech stays with society before it's changed. So it's the first level of answering your question. So
well, I would say that I would say especially in these scenarios, I think that an artist and civil society that has a potential responsibility or can influence change, right? Many things are bottom up, not necessarily top down. Obviously media, the traditional state television, the politician will tell someone that someone else is the problem, someone else is the enemy, they need to direct their anger for other things towards them. And we're an artist, and we that's why also we're having this conversation, can offer a different perspective, and so I'm very glad that we we're having this conversation today, and we are able to continue to again challenge. I'm sure that some people that will gonna listen and to this conversation and view some of the images will probably have mixed reactions, and I think that's and if it's important to offer, not to the problem is we sort of live in a bubble, and and then we used to be told who to hate and why, and we need to listen and to be open. And I think this is so you mentioned that you were with Emily, and now I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
You sent me another picture that I think it's very powerful. It's the same person that
Mm-hmm.
we're about.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that it's a perfect moment to show it again. Another shot that is here to challenge many of the things. And I love, I love having this conversation, because we very rarely, when we look at an exhibition, we look at the picture, we can go layers, beyond what is displayed on the screen. And what you just told us gave us so much more context and a deeper appreciation for the challenge that it even takes just to be in front of a camera, in for a person in a context that may be very, very difficult. So please tell us more about, we're moving from your very first shots, that was
Mm-hmm.
such a powerful experience on so many levels for you and for Victor, for the subject. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're now moving to a different shot. Tell us what we
Mm-hmm.
see here in the picture.
So the way how this picture happened was that uh, I, after this first shooting, when I took pictures of Victor, we met again a year later, I think, and we worked a little more, but he moved to a different country, which is quite probably was the best decision. It's terrible, seriously, but yeah. And I was when he moved, I was constantly thinking that um, that the way how he shared experience, it was just so brave. And this is also how I admire those people who appear on my picture, because I would be just as brave as them in a 5%, because especially it's with trans people who are in this process of transition, or with trans people who do not want to go through transition, because it sometimes also happens. Uh, I identity is something which you can hide, like, but with them, it's impossible to hide it. And this is how I started to work with Emily. She was my friend. We knew each other for years, and I actually didn't want to take pictures of her, because seriously, I was afraid that when you are when someone is your friend, you know each other very well. I was afraid that it's too difficult, because you need to have some distance, maybe. I was just afraid. But then it was a time when I almost finished my studies at this bachelor level, so I needed to uh, make a project to finish my this first level of my studies, and everything what was happening around this LGBT community was affecting me so much. So I just couldn't focus on something different, and I asked Emily if we could continue this something what I started with Victor, and also I used his text, like "This body can do wonders," as a title of these pictures, because what you can see on the screen is the first picture of a whole series, and I started to meet with Emily in her apartment, so it's more documentary, uh, and but the way how we worked was quite similar, because we were alone. I wanted her to feel as comfortable as possible, and I wanted her to show herself as she wanted. But also, it's that's why I feel that all that works are the effect is the picture, which is the effect of the work, is somewhere uh, between my way of seeing people and the way how people want to be seen. So we just meet in the in the
Explain
middle.
explain
Uh,
a little bit more
mhm.
this middle ground.
Uh, so mm, I have my brain is full of pictures. I studied cultural studies, I studied photography, so I had all this giant library of pictures in my brain, and I was thinking about different pictures which we know from the history of art. I was thinking about paintings. It was something like I was thinking about something what Derek German, one of the artists which I really admire. He wrote something um, like like uh, he wrote that trying to find a LGBTQ history. I mean, I feel that when you are a LGBTQ teenager, you do not have your history. I mean that you, especially when you live in a smaller city, you have no one to compare to. You have the the books which you read, the movies which you watch, the TV shows are full of straight couples, like straight people, and especially when maybe now it's different because we have access to internet, and but then like 20 years ago it was. When I was a teenager, I probably didn't know any gay person, and so this is what Derek Jarman wrote, that trying to find any background, any queer people in a history is like trying to find a ghost. When you try to research and find any roots of your identity. So when we were working on this picture, we were also talking that we need pictures of queer people, Polish queer people in their environment, and we need pictures which could show them. It's kind of complicated to explain, but I also, the way how I usually work, the way how I worked, and I still do it, is like I tell people about some ideas of the picture. I sometimes show them gestures. I ask them how they could show into the camera. But this is the best part, that this is something which anyone from outside can control. That everyone has so individual way of sitting, standing, moving hands, and it was. I started to think about it when I worked with Victor, because for one picture I showed him different gestures, and I asked him to repeat it, and of course he wasn't able to repeat it exactly the same, but he did it the way how he could, and he changed it, and it was so beautiful that the way how our body works is so individual, and it also worked when I was working with Emily. I told her some ideas that I wanted to show her in her apartment, in her safe space, because even it's kind of a documentary photography, everything happens inside, because this is the place where she feels, and where she felt safe. So I used her space, but I asked her to shoot some pictures in her kitchen, her bathroom, her room, and I gave her some ideas about how I think that this picture can looks and works, but the way how she used a space was like totally her way of being someone in an environment. So this is what I mean by that. All that pictures are a process between two people working together and meeting in some point. So
I
I'm not
think
sure if it's clear.
it is, and I think you said something extremely interesting about the sort of, if you look at history in general,
Mhm,
we struggle to find that,
mhm,
and it's very, I think it's as a it's very important to document the existence of transgender people or members of the
mhm,
LGBT community, especially in scenes of ordinary life, right? We
mhm,
don't, because that, otherwise we will always see that as an exception, as something that it's
mhm,
alien to us, doesn't belong to
mhm,
our normal way of living. And I think it was a very interesting observation that exactly because they somehow being erased, or
mhm,
history has been written in a way that
mhm,
doesn't document them, then of course it feels foreign, right? It feels new. It doesn't feel like a standard texture of our society as it actually is. And I think again these type of pictures where that we're not trying to create something spectacular, but we just want to document someone's
mhm,
life. That's are very important, because they just shed a light on how ordinary and how normal everything is. And it's
mhm.
important that artists document that for the future generations, and for the current.
Yeah, but I also was so afraid, and this is still something really important for me. I feel that the roots of photography, especially documentary photography, are extremely colonial or post-colonial. I just mean, and this is how photography is similar to cultural studies, anthropology, or ethnography, because when you think about the first anthropologists who, at the beginning of 20th century, went to the sorry for expression, to the exotic island and took pictures of people who used to live there, and they used this picture to show these aliens, strangers, and it it is something for me so strongly connected to photography as a medium that, uh, and also this is something which I wanted to avoid as much as possible, that I didn't want to be the type of documentary photographer who goes somewhere, takes picture and of people and use this picture to show, um, to make his or her own career. I just mean, I have, I just think about like documentary photographers from 90s, uh, who worked during, and I know, during a war, especially in Africa. Everyone knows this picture, like WordPress photo pictures of wars, of and I know that their work was extremely important at that time, especially when there were no internet. People didn't have access to media. People didn't have smartphones, and they couldn't spread the news by themselves. So at that time, that type of photographers' work was quite important. But I feel that now we really have to think about our position and how we are connected to people who we work with, because uh, I I didn't want to take pictures of, especially of transgender people, to show how their life is difficult and tough. And actually, this is what I was told when I, at the beginning, when I took pictures of Victor, and I went for a photo festival, and it was all there were a meeting with photographers and professors, and you could talk about your pictures and your portfolio. And so I talked about this first Victor's pictures, because I wanna check how they may work, and half of the people who I talked to told me that I should work. That I shouldn't work with large format camera. I should work with, reporters, 35 millimeters lenses. Seriously, this is what I was told. And they also told me that I should show his life, how tough it is, how difficult it is, all the, how this medical process, medical transitions is how it's how extremely difficult experience it is, how living in Poland is difficult. And when I was listening, it was I seriously I just create a list of things which I would never ever want to do to anyone. Seriously, because uh, like, if anyone would wants to take pictures of me, and if anyone wants to use them as a proof to show that life is tough and difficult, it is like life is difficult. But I didn't want people uh, to be just object of my thesis. I didn't want to use them, and this is probably the most important part, and this is what Victor and Emily um, teach me somehow, that I wanted people on this picture to be in power. I wanted them to express themselves. I wanted them to decide if they want how they want to be shown, and yeah, this is probably why the most important part of this of the way how I work. And and of course, when we talk with Emily, I wanted to show her in her surroundings, and because especially when you think about like queer history, and you cannot find any like role models or something, and uh, I wanted to show her in her like typical life, in her typical environment, and etc. But I just wanted her to be someone who decides about this.
If you if you could if you had one wish
Mhm.
for a specific, for an effect, for a consequence that your work could have, you know in the world, in your country, on a specific group of people, what would that wish or that effect be?
One wish. And we are talking about the country which I do not want
No,
to come
it could
back.
be, no, it could
Uh,
be that, you obviously
yeah, yeah. Actually, I think that I have this one wish. Wish that non queer teenager. Uh, I just, I'm thinking about myself when I was 16 and saw these non-golden pictures, and it was something so important. And uh, so I, and I know uh, how difficult it is when you feel completely lonely, when you feel that you are the only one person in the world. And this is also experience which most of the queer, by queer I mean gay, trans, whatever, it's the like all people who experience, who has this experience. I think that most of the people who I know remember the moment when they were teenager, when they started to think about their identities, and they felt completely lonely, that they couldn't talk to anyone. They didn't have any like heroes or role models, because our culture is not focused on queer people. So this is what I wish, if anyone who feels that he or she is the only one on the planet with that kind of experience, and if she or he could see this picture and feel less lonely, this is something probably what I wish. So
that is a
yes,
that is a beautiful thing, and I'm sure that it's happening. Well, it's happening right now, and actually it will happen even more, this gives me a sort of a good access. We can fast forward to now. You have an
Mm-hmm.
exhibition coming up, right?
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me. I want to give viewers of this channel just a little bit spoiler about what they're
Mm-hmm.
about to see. Let me see if I can share it. I think again it's incredibly powerful and will challenge numerous assumptions. First of all, this picture is absolutely beautiful. I will ask you, how did you even technically realize that there is something going on? But tell us before, more about your the theme of your upcoming exhibition. When will it be,
Mhm.
and obviously how then that picture came to be.
So this is one of the picture of a project which I named No Tears for Queers, and so uh, um, so I started working on it last summer, and I will show it in Chiang Mai in Thailand, which is something so unexpected because uh, I I will explain it in a few seconds. Anyway, I told you about all that documentary background which I had, and and I the way how all this queer project progressed or has been progressing is I wanted to I wanted to work in a studio situation alone with one or two people to feel comfortable and I wanted to remove any unnecessary elements. I wanted to remove any scenography, any elements which aren't body, because uh, this this is what I feel that our experience are so connected to our body, and I don't think only about visible experience, but like with trans guys who show their chest and you can see a scars. But I mean that I was thinking about how stress and this feeling of danger affects the way how you feel by your body. When your throat is stuck, and when you feel when you are in extreme stress and you just cannot move. This is what I was thinking at the beginning, because this project started after this terrible pride in Białystok. I just felt that I needed to make some pictures. I just couldn't stand that atmosphere at that time, and I started to ask my friends uh, to meet in a studio, and we we started to work on pictures where only their bodies and colors are visible. So I also I was thinking about also like art history, but also a pop culture. So some of these pictures are inspired by posters or movie posters or the most famous picture, which we all know, but sometimes we even don't know how we know them. Those were the roots. But I also tried to find a way for uh, for people, especially for my at the beginning for my friends who wanted to be on these pictures, who wanted to join this project, but they didn't want to show their faces because they have different life situations. Some of them are completely outed. Some of them live double life. It happens, especially when you live in a so conservative country and you are afraid of that your identity may hurt your family. This is what happens when you are afraid and you try to hide. So I try to figure out how they could be a part of this project and but still be safe. And also I feel that especially working with people who don't wants to be recognized on this picture is something really powerful, because you have to be extremely brave to take a project about identities where you are so afraid about telling about your identity, because it might be dangerous. So those were the roots, and um, yeah, I I mm, so what you would like to know more?
Well, I would like to know
So
when these pictures will be on display, for how long,
Mhm,
where it's it will be like a physical exhibition. Is there any sort of
mhm,
online access now during this? Obviously COVID-19. I don't know if
uh-huh.
there's any virtual tour, anything that the people can benefit from and see that picture while it's on.
Okay. So now I can explain why Thailand, because I came to Chiang Mai in January for a photo festival, and I met Noni, a transgender girl, and we start to talk about my previous projects, and actually I showed her this picture and two or three also taken in Poland, and actually she encouraged me to come back here, because um, to try to find some queer people who would like to join this project. And it was quite crazy because after this festival, I came back to Poland for a week or two to finish my exams, and I came back to Chiang Mai to see Pride Parade, because it was the second Pride Parade which they organized, and the experience was quite awesome, because uh, I know a Pride Parades from Warsaw, which are quite commercial and also focus on a gay community. And here I could see a Pride Parade focus on trans women rights. So it was something really impressive, and I started to work here, met some new people, and then the lockdown on the border starts. So that's why I got stuck here, and now I feel that's the moment to show some of these works, and it will be a real exhibition, because we can meet here now and we can go out, and like the worst moment part of this curfew and COVID situation finished, I think. So the exhibition will be on the 15th of August, and we'll probably make some documentation and post it on Facebook. So yeah, so it will be something like that. But also, I feel that it's I came here when I came here in February. I was completely alone, and it was absolutely crazy, because I was actually, it's the first time in my life when I have to constantly speak English. So I was even afraid that how it is possible to communicate with people when I know that I speak with so strong Polish accent, because it's impossible to not having a Polish accent when you didn't use the English before, and I knew just three people here, and so I knew that I have a space for taking pictures, but I was afraid that it might be impossible to find people, especially when I felt like like total stranger. I came here, didn't know anyone, and I wanted to ask people like, "Hey, would you like to join my project, which is called No Queers for Tears?" I feel that it's quite at first it's not. Sometimes I think it's not the best title, and moreover, most people on these pictures are naked, so.
You were just approaching like people on the street, say, "Hey, this is the project, and this is what you have to do. Like, we don't know each other, but please come with me into my studio."
Yeah, but so yeah, it sounds. I still feel that it sounds crazy, but Sure, it happened.
People say, "Oh, yeah, that's great. I have nothing to do this afternoon. Let's go."
Yeah, but yeah, I feel that first of all, again, I felt that uh, this is what works. That I came here alone, and it was on one of the picture. There is a guy who came from different city. We just met on the party after this Pride parade, and the next week he came to a place where I stayed and worked, and when we talked about it, I thought that it's absurd that I'm alone in a city which I do not know. I even don't know where to go to eat. It's easy to find a place to eat in Thailand, but I was so afraid to even to try to talk to people, and I thought that, and I invited a guy which I do not know to come to my place for 2 or 3 days to take a naked picture. So yeah, it sounds bad, but I'm not sure what he thought about it, but actually it was extremely great experience, and we spent 2 or 3 days taking pictures, uh, and I feel that it works that I'm alone and I depend from people so much. Like I now I feel more comfortable, but at the beginning when I met someone, when we even when we went somewhere to eat, when I was sitting on someone's bike, I completely I was completely dependent of this person because I even didn't know where we were going. So yeah, it sounds crazy, and I hope that my mom won't check this video because yeah. So this is probably what people shouldn't do when they're alone and 10,000 kilometers from their countries, but it worked, and especially with this project, I feel that people who are on this picture felt in control, that because they control the situation, not me at all. So maybe it was the key to start.
Well, I think they felt that irrespective of sometimes we focus too much on the actual language and we forget that the majority of communication is nonverbal, right? And so someone can sense that you are sincere, that you're authentic, that you're there you don't have an agenda, you don't want to sort of take advantage of them, they will be in control, it's for a worthy cause. So that transcends your accent or whatever. People feel that, and they feel even more when it's a face-to-face interaction. So they felt, as you said, you felt dependent on them or some other people, but at the same time, when they decide to be with you in a studio, they somehow know that you potentially you're giving them the power, but you potentially can take it back anytime, right? And no, but it's and they know you're not going to do it because they sense something that goes beyond word. And
yeah, and maybe what is important about being here, because at first I started to take this picture in Poland, and the title came from the remember in 2016 it was a shooting in Orlando, in a Pulse Club, and I was watching all this not all these videos on YouTube. Most of them are videos about from different cities or countries which showed support. Like I remember the Eiffel Tower turned into rainbow colors. I remember some football matches when people have rainbow t-shirts, and so most of the videos which I saw was something like that, but one of them was from some there were some counter protesters against Pride Parade. The video was taken also in States, and people on this video holding these posters I'm not sure if I can talk in Facebook with you, on this
Well,
video
let's
in
say that
this language, but yeah, I need to quote it because most of the posters was with this text "God hates fags," but one of them was actually with this text "No tears for queers," and it was so shocking that uh, after a shooting, when so many people died, someone can hold a poster like with absolutely no empathy, and and this is what I was thinking after this Białystok Pride, after this mm, situation when Emily was attacked on the street, like Jesus, people, like you have no mercy. It was something like that. So this was the root of the those are the roots of this project. But also, when I came to Thailand and I started to meet people from so many different countries, because I took pictures of Thai people. I also have picture of guys from Philippines,
yeah.
from Indonesia, also people from different European countries, and we spent usually a few hours, sometimes few days together. Some of them started to be my friends. When I started to work with them, I started to feel that it might be powerful to show a picture and connect them with those people's stories, because even they have so different backgrounds. The like the core of the experience of being queer person in a world which does not want you to express your identity, those experiences are so extremely similar, and especially one of the most important person who I met here, it's a guy from Indonesia. So you can think about my background. I came from extremely Catholic country where 98% of people are white, and I met a gay guy from Indonesia with Muslim background. And when we talked about our experience, of course they are different, but the roots, the emotions, and the feelings are so similar. And this is what I want to explore in this project. That's why I started to use so many colors. But uh, I also want to combine people's stories, which are extremely difficult and tough. I want to combine them with pictures where people look as beautiful as possible. Because I saw so many like mm, campaigns, like human rights campaigns, which show people who are bullied. This is the experience of most queer people. I know that they were bullied in school, but I don't want to show people as victims. I want to let them be as beautiful as and strong as possible. And this is how I use all my like studio photography knowledge to let them be and be as as strong as possible. And so I'm at the moment when I can show the first works here, and I seriously thinking about making a book, because I also feel that those pictures do not exist without people's stories. So
Yeah.
so that's the moment when I'm now. So
Joanna, this was thank you so much for sharing so many like intimate stories and personal experience, and how this is a deeply sort of personal work that is powerful and can create and really trigger and drive a change for the better in the world. And again, I really like what you said, the people looking at this and say they feel at least a tiny bit less lonely, and less afraid. So that is very powerful and very important. Where can people find you on the internet and reach out to you for a variety of reasons? I believe. What's the best way to contact you?
Now I think that it's Instagram. I still don't have my website, although I'm working on it. But Instagram is the easiest way, and also it's a place where I post some pictures. Not every, because nudity isn't something what you can post on Instagram. But any information about experience about exhibitions, I post there, and and this is probably the
What's
way
your
to catch me.
what's your Instagram handle so I can put it in on the
Uh,
screen as well as in the description?
Maybe I send you a link.
Yeah, no, okay.
Uh,
I will.
uh,
I will do it. I will check it
it's
afterwards.
just my, you can find me just my name, like Joanna.Berg, but double G at the end.
Okay. The first one was already taken. Yeah.
Something like that. So and this is something that I'm at the moment when this being in Thailand also shown me that it's difficult to expect something. I just mean, so many things happened here which I would never ever expect. So now I just, I'm waiting for this exhibition because I want to finally show my works and show those people on this picture. And I'm quite wonder what will happen later, because I really feel that this idea of showing queer people from different areas of different worlds and different places might work, and so I would like to continue it, and we'll see how it works. So
fantastic. Well, good luck for your exhibition. For everyone who's in Chiang Mai or close to it, 15th of August, you have to go and see that. Again, good luck. Thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for the possibility of sharing it, and it was so nice and less stressful than I thought. So thank you.
Thank you very much.